Okay, so I've got this cover done here, and I've just been playing around. Once I got this all worked out and everything, I realized that this word December was probably a little bit too long. It's gonna, if I try to center it, it's gonna overlap onto the pattern paper, and I don't think I really want that. I could do it like this. I thought about doing it like this on the edge and having the 2011 here, right here, and I don't know if that didn't really, I may just save this for this year later on. I don't know. It's just, I'm just not feeling it now that the cover is done. But I do have, I just happened to look over in my cart, and these are some really old basic gray chipboard alphabets. They're from the Konnichiwa collection. And so, but they're red and they're kind of a little bit grungy, and I don't know, they just seem like a really nice look on this cover. And so the cover itself is doing pretty well, but it still has a little bit of bounce right here. So I'm holding it down with these scissors while I decide on what to do here. And I'm kind of liking this. I think it probably needs to be over a little bit more towards the edge of the, towards this edge. But now what I have to decide is, do I want to put it on the cover itself? Do I want to put all this on the cover itself, or do I want to put it on the chipboard underneath? And if I don't put it on the chipboard underneath, then what am I going to do with the chipboard underneath? And which, you know, isn't really a major life decision, right? It's not going to break the album either way. It's just a matter of making a decision and going with it. But I thought I would share with you kind of what my thought process was before I make that decision, because this is kind of how I've come to this point. Once I had the cover done, and there's not really enough space for that. And that's often what drives design decisions too, obviously, is once you have it created, is there space to do what you planned on doing? Now, if I do put this on the cover, what I'm thinking about is gessoing some of this chipboard underneath. Not solid white, but like a grungy gesso, to sort of go with the grunge that's on this alphabet. You guys, I'm sad that I don't have more of these alphabets. Like, look at all these numbers and all the E's that they gave you. Really cool. I miss basic gray. Anyway, so I really am kind of liking the idea of putting all this on the cover. So how am I going to do this? Let me put this away. And how am I going to do this so that this is the cover, and we want everything to be permanent. I want it to stay there. I'm thinking about sewing these and the star. I don't know if this adhesive is permanent, if it's tacky enough to stick onto that glossy transparency. If not, then glossy accents are always good. It does feel really tacky. I'm just testing it because they're older. They are older, and so they've been in my studio for a while. They've been around. I think they're going to adhere just fine. Yeah, that's fine. I am going to leave this little thing in the E's. I'm not going to leave it in the B and D because it's white. But I do like it on these E's. It's always, doing the cover always feels so official, doesn't it? Is anybody else like that? I'm like that. Every year when I do the cover, I'm like, oh, holding my breath. It's the first, like, it's the first official work, even though I've been working on this for a couple of days now. I like this little pop of red. There's a little bit of red in that pattern paper, right? There's a little red tree, and on the binding there's a red star. And so a little pop of red ties that in. Quite perfectly. And then next year, or later on this year, I'll use that other acrylic December. I am eyeballing these to some extent, and I'm also using the polka dots as a guide. Let me do the B first and then center the E. There we go. Okay. So I think my next step is going to be to grab some of my embroidery thread, and I'm going to stitch these down, and I'm going to speed up the video for that. Okay, so I thought what I might do is, instead of embroidering this, I thought I might just sew it with my sewing machine. And so that meant I wanted to do a trial run on this transparency and see how that worked out. So I did a couple of just plain stitches to get my tension just right and the stitch size just right. And then I just grabbed an X, right? It's an alphabet I'm probably not going to use. There were 2 of them. So I wanted to see how it would handle that, and it did pretty well. It just shifted a little bit, and which is okay. So I think what I'm going to do here at this juncture, I want to stitch it with red thread because I have this, and I think that's really pretty. I think that's a pretty look across that white alphabet. So I think what I'm gonna do is just use a tiny bit of glossy accents on the ends of this and let that dry, and then stitch it across so that it will be secure, and hopefully it won't slide around. Hopefully it won't pop off. It does resist just a tiny bit. So, I always recommend, you know, if you're not sure about what you're doing, do a trial run. Just so you at least know what to expect. I know that it will resist just a tiny bit, and so I can prepare for that. So I'm gonna I really am going to fast forward the video now and go ahead and put these down. All right. So at this point I decided that I also wanted to stitch down the border between the patterned paper and the transparency. So I'm doing a quick zigzag stitch on both the front cover and the back cover, just to put a little bit of a transition there. It probably doesn't need it structurally, but it does add a repetitive element for the red thread and ties in the red color again, and it adds some visual interest there. Then I'm just going to trim my threads real quick here, and once that's done I'm going to clear off a little bit of space here, and then I'm going to start adding some more embellishments to the inside cover. I know that I want to work a little bit with this chipboard piece. It's technically not the cover itself, but it is see-through, or it's viewable through the cover, so it is a part of the cover, and I'm treating it like it is the cover. So I have in my mind a little bit of what I think I want to do with it, and we'll see how that works out. I don't want to put a lot there. It's just for visual interest, no photos, just a little bit of embellishment. And so I know that I want to start here with some white paint. I was thinking about gesso, but I decided in the end just to use this acrylic white paint. And then I have my tool. That's actually a putty knife that I use to spread paint or gesso across the page. And then I have this little deer. This little guy was in the Maggie Holmes Bloom collection, and he has just a little tiny gray check pattern and then gold legs and hooves. So I'm going to use him as well. I want him to look like he's just peeking out from behind the patterned paper. So here's my method for adding gesso, or in this case white paint, to your page. Just put down a couple of spots of paint and then spread it around. And I'm not really focused on any particular look or any particular pattern or anything like that. Just want a little bit of paint on the page. This is a little bit of visual interest, and there's also some contrast here between the craft of the chipboard and the white of the paint. This is going to help that little deer to pop off the page. It also kind of can look like snow if you're into that kind of thing. I'm just using it for some visual interest here. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of stamping here. I have this stamp set from Ali Edwards. It's from a previous December daily collection, and so I'm going to use a couple of the stamps on this page as well, just to highlight. I'm going to be embossing. I'm using black embossing powder from American Crafts from the Zing line, and so I'm going to put the music back on and let you watch my process here. So once I'm done with this part of my stamping and embossing, I'm going to add just another word to the tab portion of the chipboard. I'm going to use the word traditions and just stamp that and emboss that as well. And that's just to add another touch of the black here and repeat that element across the page. And just bring your eye up to that point of the page, really, so you know to turn it, which obviously you know anyway, but it sort of brings your eye up to that tab. I really like the shape of the tabs on these chipboard pieces, and that's really why I wanted to use those. So this is a great way to emphasize that shape right there. And I'm just going to stamp that and then heat emboss it again. And notice again how this black contrasts with the white of the paint, and also with the chipboard, the craft color of the chipboard. It's a great contrast here. Lots of visual interest on this page. But still also very simple and very clean, not very fussy or complicated. Not a lot to this, but I really like how it turned out. It looks really beautiful in the end. So I'm going to wrap up my video here. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process of creating the album and then embellishing the cover here. It's always my favorite part. I'll be honest, it's my favorite part of creating these December albums. They're all really special, each in their own way, and I'm glad that you're following along with me this year for this album. And so I'm going to share with you some close-up photos, and then I'll see you back here again for the next video, and we'll start doing the pages in the album. Thanks again for watching, you guys. Bye-bye.